Welcome to today's episode of The Irresistible Factor. I'm really excited today to have a very young and wonderfully exciting female founder on with us today. Her name is Addison LaBonte, and she is the founder and CEO of Sweet Addisons, which is a better for you and better tasting dessert brand. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Christy. I'm so excited to be here talking with you.
Yeah, why don't you give us a little background? Because obviously you can't have been doing this for too long because you're not old enough to have been doing it for too long, but you have lots of great experience. And you obviously know what you're doing and are on a mission. And I just would love to hear a little bit of background on that.
Sure. So I grew up on the coast of Maine in a really small town, and I went to the University of Maine to play Division I college soccer, and it was the best experience of my life. And right after graduating, I decided to start training for a half marathon because I wanted to stay in really great shape. As I was running, I experienced really, really bad pain in my legs. And then if I continued to run, my legs would actually become completely numb. And it was a very weird sensation. It felt very scary to me because I had no idea why this was occurring. And, you might think, oh, your legs are numb. You must feel great when you're running. You can't feel any pain, but your depth perception is off. Trying to get on and off a sidewalk, you can't feel your feet. It's just a very strange sensation. So I went to see a physical therapist, a doctor, a sports specialist, and they all said, you have something called compartment syndrome, which basically means the muscle fibers that surround my leg muscles don't expand when I'm running. So they're supposed to expand. The extra blood flow will get to my muscles. The muscles can swell as I'm running, and I would have, regular function. But due to a bunch of inflammation in my body, they just weren't. So I remember I was in the doctor's office and he said, you have two options here. You can get surgery on both of your legs and be out for 12 months, or you can quit running altogether. And at the time, I was 22 years old, and I said, I was just a D1 athlete. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm so young. I said, no, I'm not doing either one of those. I'm just going to continue to run. I don't care if it's doing damage. I'm stubborn. And I said, I don't really care. And my aunt lives in my hometown, and she's a great runner. She's run all the major marathons. And she said, whenever I'm training for a marathon, I'm gluten-free. And it really makes me feel better. So maybe you should give it a try. And I thought, well, gluten has nothing to do with running, but I'm so desperate to feel better. Monday morning, I'll start. And I did. And within 3 to 4 days, I was able to run again with no pain and no numbness. And I felt normal. And since then, it's been 7 years now. I've had all these other symptoms clear up. I used to get 1 to 2 really bad headaches a week, to the point where I'm laying in bed taking medicine, don't really feel like doing anything. I don't even own ibuprofen anymore. I don't buy it because I maybe get 1 to 2 headaches per year. So my entire life has changed since becoming gluten-free, and it's really made me passionate about the ingredients that we eat, the foods that we eat, how they affect us. They can become the medicine for our life, or they can become the obstacles. They're either making us more healthy or they're making us sicker. So that's why I started an Instagram account that showed how I started to relearn how to bake, but in a gluten-free way. And then I started my food blog, Organically Addison. And then in early 2024, I launched Sweet Addisons because so many members of my audience were pushing for it. They said, we'd love to, buy your cookies from you. And I even had some people would comment on my Instagrams and say, if you make this, I will pay for you to ship it across the country to me because these cookies look that good. And I thought, well, I'm onto something here. I need to do this. So that's the background of me and how I got started and why I became gluten-free.
So many questions. First of all, it's amazing that you took that thing which could have been so devastating and turned it into something incredibly positive. I guess my first question is, you ignored your doctor, right? So
Yeah.
your doctor said, do this or this, surgery or stop running. And I mean, I also am curious to know if you ever went back to him and said, I didn't do either of the things you said, and I'm still running. Did you go back to him? I hope you did.
Yes, I had a 1 month follow-up appointment, and I walked into his office and I said, I'm cured. I said, I figured this out on my own. I stopped eating gluten. And he said, there's no way those are connected. That makes no sense. It's probably just, you know, your body's changing right now with your diet, it'll come back. And, I'm happy for you. I'm glad that it worked out, but that doesn't make any sense. And I had to bite my tongue. And I wanted to say to him, what's your background in nutrition? Because, I can guarantee that you haven't studied nutrition. And I really truly wanted to say, you wanted me to get surgery as a 22-year-old
Surgery on
division
both
one,
legs. I mean, that's
both legs.
unreal, unreal.
And what the surgery is it's called a fasciotomy. And what they do is they go into your muscle fibers and they make small incisions so that they are able to expand. And he even told me there's no guarantee that this works out. Like it could work, it could not work. You might not be able to run ever again. And if you want to run around with your kids someday, forget it. I mean, you're doing lasting nerve damage to your legs. So I'm thankful every day that I'm my own advocate, and I was stubborn, and I had that sense about me at only 22 years old that there has to be another way.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who are, 60 years old that don't think that way because we just think we're supposed to listen to our doctors because they know things that we don't know. So I think that's incredible. And I hope that people hear this and take that as one of the takeaways, not just about the brand that you started, but also about the fact that you know your body. And if someone's telling you something, it doesn't mean that's the fact, right? The only way. So I really think that's incredible. Talk a little bit about, so pre-starting the cookie brand or the dessert brand, you were doing some pretty serious influencing, right? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So about 2 years after I became gluten-free, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on how to bake and how to go out to dinner and how to navigate, family parties and holidays. And I was working in a really intense finance job at the time, and I just was so unfulfilled. I dreaded going to work. And I thought, I want to do something fun just for me. And so I started this Instagram account, Organically Addison. And I thought, I'm just going to post, maybe once a day or a couple times a week, just what I'm eating, for a snack or what I eat when I go to dinner, and just share about being gluten-free, because this was back in 2018 where gluten wasn't quite yet trendy and
Yeah.
most products on the market tasted like cardboard. So I,
Yep.
being a baker, said, I'm just going to bake everything at home. So I started posting and it really just took off. I remember it only took me about a month to get 1,000 followers, which back then it was almost impossible to go viral like it is now. So I thought that that was, pretty great growth. And I got the nicest feedback from people, and they said, where can we find these recipes? So I started my website in late 2018, and I've just been consistently growing that ever since. Things really took off with that account in 2020 when everybody was at home baking and cooking and looking for healthier options. So that has been a dream come true. I mean, I remember the exact day. I started my account on July 4th, uh, 2018. And I remember I was at this family party in Maine, and we were on the ocean at my aunt's cottage, right on the ocean, the most beautiful day. And I just thought, I'm so unfulfilled and unhappy because of my job. And right then I started this Instagram account, and now that's my full-time job. And it's just been such a blessing.
That's so awesome. Congratulations, first of all. It's such a great thing that you're doing. But I have a question for you about I want to talk about the brand too, but has it gotten harder or easier with the awareness of gluten? Because gluten-free is now different than it was, right? It was celiac only. Celiacs had to be gluten-free and nobody understood it. And it was really, really hard because you could go to restaurants and people just didn't believe you, right? People didn't believe it. Now, I think it got really trendy and all these products came out and then everyone thought they were gluten-free, and it's not really true, right? Everyone doesn't need to be gluten-free, although they may feel better. Did that make it easier for you or harder, the confusion around celiacs versus I would feel slightly better if I stopped eating gluten and the influx of products?
It has only gotten easier with time,
Okay.
because gluten is more well known in
Mhm.
today's world. And you go to most restaurants now and they have labeled menus, whereas
Yes.
when I first became gluten-free, I had to ask so many questions. And some people at restaurants confuse it with being vegan. And I'm like, no, I am definitely not vegan. I eat meat every single day.
Yeah.
But they didn't necessarily understand what gluten was. So in every sense of my life, it has become so much easier. Most days it doesn't even register with me because I'm so used to eating this way and I cook almost everything from home. So I'm so used to it. All my friends and family are aware of it. I just feel like there's so much more knowledge out there today about being gluten-free, what gluten is in, why it is dangerous for some people to eat it and why some people choose not to, even though they aren't celiac. So it is much, much easier today.
And I know we talked about this already. You never got tested officially, right?
No, so I went back to just like my primary care doctor, probably a year or two into being gluten-free. And I said, I want to be tested for celiac disease because I haven't eaten gluten in a year and my life is significantly better. And
Mhm.
she said, okay, well, in order to be tested, you have to be eating gluten for 2 weeks straight. It needs to be in your system so we can test it. And I looked at her and laughed and I said, I would be so sick if I ate gluten every day for 14 days. I said, there's just no way. I mean, even one bite and I get like a migraine and I want to fall asleep at the table. So I don't know if I have celiac disease. I might not. I have some of the other symptoms of it, but I might just have a really bad intolerance to gluten as well.
Um, do you think that, and this is like just an opinion, I know this is, you're not a doctor. In your experience, have most people who stopped eating gluten or cut back on gluten felt better in some way, like even if they're not celiac? Because there's so many people that don't eat gluten and aren't celiac.
Yes, I am not a doctor. I did graduate from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, so I do have a nutrition background. Yes. The way that our gluten and wheat are processed here in the United States makes it significantly more harmful to people than in countries in Europe.
Yep,
Um,
I've had that experience too.
yes. So what I would encourage people to do is to try to go without gluten for a week or two and see if you feel better. I can almost guarantee that you will.
Yeah.
Uh, my mom she calls it gluten light. She doesn't eat a lot of gluten and she feels so much better. After I became gluten-free, I encouraged one of my best friends to become gluten-free because she would get a really, really bad migraine for like 24 hours every few months, like cannot get out of bed, cannot have the lights on. And I said, why don't you just become gluten-free and see if it helps? And she did, and it's been years, and she doesn't get migraines anymore. And so there's so many different ways that gluten can show up in someone. So whether it's migraines, I mean, some people get physically sick, but yes, I would encourage everybody to be
Try it.
gluten-free. Yes.
All right, talk about your brand now, because this is what we're here for, right? So this made you start something that did not sound like it was in your plan initially. You weren't going to become a baker and an owner of a desserts brand, right? You had other goals in mind.
Yes. So let me back this up. In college, I was a math major, and
Wow.
which is it was very difficult, very challenging. I'm very glad that I did it. But my whole life plan was I'm going to climb the corporate ladder in finance and be a CFO. My mom is a CFO, and I thought I'm going to do exactly what she did, climb the corporate ladder, wear a suit to work every day, and sit at a desk. And what I'm doing now is the exact opposite,
Mhm.
which is funny. But becoming a baker, even becoming gluten-free was never ever part of my life plan. I mean, I was shocked that I became gluten-free, but that's how desperate I was because I was in so much pain. And my whole family was like, "You're gluten-free? Like you love junk food and how is this going to work out and what do you eat?" And so none of this was part of my plan, but I'm realizing that God always has better plans than we do. And this is where I'm at in life and I'm going to make the best of it. And truly, this brand, even in the past month that it's been launched, is one of the most fulfilling and rewarding things I've ever done. I call my parents every single night. And just last week, I talked to them and said, I haven't been this like genuinely happy since college because I feel like for the first time in a few years, I'm really making a difference in people's lives. The very first week of Sweet Addisons, somebody ordered and said, I'm buying this for a friend who's going through chemo. and his doctor said he's not allowed to eat white sugar, but he loves cookies. And he can eat yours because they're much lower in sugar. They have coconut sugar, so they're lower on the glycemic index. And I just want to bring him joy. And so that was a very pivotal moment for me. And I kind of changed part of my mission statement to spread joy through these cookies and through these desserts. So launching a brand was never part of my plan, but my audience started asking for it. And I said, I really want to provide a safe, healthy, and really delicious option for those of us who can't eat regular desserts. And for those of us who have health conditions or are looking to eat a little bit healthier, if I'm able to use my talents with baking to provide joy for more people, it'd be very selfish of me to not pursue that. So although creating a food brand it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's exhausting, it's not the easiest path I could have taken. I wanted to be able to spread joy to other people.
So admirable. And also you said it's hard and time consuming. And so can you talk about what it really took for you to start? Like you baked and people loved your baking and you were sending some baked goods around, totally different than trying to scale up, right, a business. So can you talk about what made you decide you were going to try to make it into something that you could scale? And how has that gone for you? What did you need to learn and do?
So the past 6 months or so, I have basically done a crash course on consumer packaged goods, the CPG industry. I've made a ton of connections online through LinkedIn, Instagram, and Slack, and set up a bunch of Zoom calls with people and just try to learn everything I could about what it takes to make it in this industry. But to answer your question, it's not as easy as baking cookies, putting them in the mail and sending them to somebody. I realized that I needed to figure out exactly what ingredients I wanted to use. I needed to come up with a cookie that wouldn't spoil in 3 days and wouldn't harden in 3 days and could make it in a shipping box across the country and not crumble or break in half or get smushed. So it took me probably 4 months and over 25 recipe variations to finalize just the chocolate chip cookies. So when I tell you that I am a perfectionist, I mean, I nitpicked everything. Maybe this could be a little bit better. And I have all these notes on my phone, and it is fascinating to look back at where I started and what the end result is. And I am just so in love with these cookies, and I'm glad that my audience is too. So that was the first step: is what does this product look like? What's important to the brand? What ingredients do I want to use? So from the get-go, I knew that I didn't want to just use gluten-free flour because it often contains xanthan gum or other fillers. And I said, I want a cleaner label than that. So settled on almond flour. And then it was like, okay, where do I buy almond flour that's not $10 a pound like it is at the grocery store? So I contacted different suppliers. That's sourcing the ingredients was tough, especially because I don't have any experience in that. I've never bought 500 pounds of almond flour at one time until a couple weeks ago. And that was interesting as well. And then I needed to make sure that my cost of goods wasn't too high because I didn't want to price these like crazy high. And I actually talked to a few pricing psychologists because that really is a thing. And they were like, you need to price them like $8 to $10 each. And I was like, that's crazy. I want as many people to be able to enjoy these as possible while staying in business. So I went a little bit less than that. So it was just a lot of moving pieces and ingredients, recipes, cost of goods. And then there's the whole, legal side, setting up the LLC, getting my food handler's license, everything with the FDA, getting an attorney. So it's just a lot of different moving pieces.
Who helped you? Did you have help? Did you do it all on your own? Did you find mentors?
I have a few mentors here in Dallas who have been a godsend. They have answered all of my questions at any time of day or night, and they've been super helpful. I have done a lot of this on my own, which is tough. The doubt that comes, what am I doing with my life? And are people actually going to buy these? And what if I buy 500 pounds of almond flour and spend thousands of dollars and nobody buys it? Then what am I going to do with that? And so there are just all of these different, what if scenarios. But for every negative what if, I tried to reframe it as, what if this is a big hit? And what if people love these cookies? And what if this changes my life? And I'll give a huge shout out to my parents. Again, I talk to them every single night on the phone because they still live back home in Maine. And they're two people who were very successful in finance, climbing the corporate ladder, and they did nothing like this. And they are extremely supportive. I mean, every night, how are the cookies? How many orders did you get? Where did you send them to today? And so they have mentored me in that sense and just checking in on me, asking how I'm doing and reassuring me that, this is the path to take and to pursue this dream. And for that, I am extremely grateful.
Um, Sounds like you're lucky, and also you just have some fire in you that, because every founder that I've talked to, I think, Addison, and I think I told you this last time we chatted, everyone has the same question. This has nothing to do with like how old you are, or what you learned when you were in school, or how many jobs you had before this. It really has to do with, mostly when people start brands. I honestly think people wouldn't start brands if they could answer all those questions, because they would be too scared of the answers. And I think not knowing in some ways is what lets people do the things that seem like they might be hard, because you don't get how hard they're going to be. But it also sounds like you've struggled a little, but it sounds like you have such a good attitude. It doesn't feel struggly to you, does it? Do you feel like you're struggling?
No, no, not at all. I feel like I'm going through a big challenge. And
Mhm.
again, every time I think, what am I doing? I rephrase that into, if my cookies can bring joy to one other person, then that's the legacy that I want to leave. And when I get messages from people saying, thank you so much, I haven't been able to, have a birthday treat, or I eat these every night after dinner. And I've had them dropped off for weddings. I just, again, in my first 2 weeks of launching, somebody ordered these for a wedding and said the bride is gluten and dairy free and she can never eat anything. And I said,
Yeah.
well, that's amazing. So this brand isn't about me. I have my name in the brand because I talked to branding specialists and they said, you're such a part of this. You need to have your name in the brand. But this brand is not about me at the end of the day. This is about how can I serve other people and bring them joy and happiness and memories and experiences. And I just want people who eat these cookies, especially those of us who have food allergies or preferences, I want us to feel normal. And like we don't have to settle for gluten-free desserts that taste like cardboard, because I've been there and it's it's not fun.
Mhm.
So I'm very lucky. I'm extremely blessed. And I just want to pass along this blessing to other people.
So I love that. And I also am curious to know how you, so you launched not that long ago. When did you officially launch?
January 30th, 2024.
So that's like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
In
it seems
time,
like
right?
it.
Tell me
Right.
how it's going. Tell me what it's like. What's it like? What's your day-to-day like now? Because you're at the very really early stage. So how many orders are you kind of taking, and you're doing it all at home at the moment?
I am. So I was supposed to be in a commercial kitchen already, but the commercial kitchen is being built out still. It was supposed to be done a few months ago, and they've just had, different issues, and it's finally finishing up soon. So I'll move into there. Um, Day to day, every day is a little bit different. I try to stay ahead of the orders so that I'm not overwhelmed at all. So what I'll do is I will, make the dough, make the cookies. I'm adding labels to the bags. I'm putting them in the packages. I do everything. I jokingly say that I am both the CEO and the dishwasher because it's
Mhm.
true. But I really wanted to see every part of the process so that when I scale and grow, I can start to hire out and I know exactly what it takes to succeed here. And then recently I've been testing a few new flavors. So I've gone through the recipe testing of those. So, every 2 or 3 days I'll do another round of testing that. And in March 2024, I will be launching my second flavor. You guys will have to stay tuned for that. I'm very excited about it, and I've given it to a few early taste testers who actually said that they like it better than the chocolate chip ones,
Wow.
which
Are you
is
gonna tell us what it is, or are you gonna wait, make us wait?
um I'll tease it a little bit.
Okay.
It has a lot of chocolate in it.
All right. Interesting.
Chocolate is my favorite food after all, and I essentially created a cookie that's a version of two of my favorite desserts in one, and it's
Amazing.
very decadent. So, yeah, check it out. But I'm very excited about that. So I went through, I think, 5 or 6 recipe variations with that. And then later today, actually, I will be testing a third flavor that has been highly requested.
Amazing. Amazing. Tell me the top, let's say 2 or 3 challenges you've come into that you've bumped into along the journey.
Oh boy, where to begin? Shipping. So I had no idea how to, first of all, I had no idea about any of this when I started, but especially like the logistics of shipping the product. I was so concerned at the start that the cookies would crumble and they wouldn't make it. And I remember I had my logo designed and my website was up and going, and I thought, I haven't even tried shipping these yet. So I sent a box to my parents in Maine and my best friend in California. So I kind of got both coasts going. And I said, please be brutally honest and send pictures of what these look like before I officially launch. And I just remember those like 3 or 4 days when the cookies were in the mail, I thought, if these don't survive, I don't have a business. And I'm going to have to just keep pushing back the launch until they make it across the country. And my best friend in California got them first. And she sent me a picture and she said, they're perfect. They arrived perfectly. They're so delicious. We all love them. Amazing, amazing. And I took like the biggest deep breath. And I thought, okay, I have something here. So the shipping and then figuring out like shipping boxes and shipping labels. And truthfully, at the beginning, I thought, well, I'll just buy some boxes and I'll drop them off at FedEx and see how much they charge me and go from there. But doing it like that is very expensive. So I signed up with a shipping service, so I get a discounted rate there. But then then it was pricing. How do I price these? How do I price shipping? How do I need to make sure that I am making enough margin so that I can continue this brand. And that was a big thing that I heard in the industry is you need to make sure you have a strong enough margin to survive.
Do you have you worked with any accelerator programs, or has it really been all you figuring out what to do and finding people to ask questions of?
I'm not in any official accelerator programs. I am part of the Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator Program, but that's more so just business in general, not specific to the food industry. And then I am a member of the Dallas Fort Worth CPG community, and that to me has been game changing. Just having so many food founders here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, everybody has been extremely generous with their knowledge and their time and their resources and connections. So it's not an official accelerator, but it's a really awesome community of people that have helped me out tremendously.
I think that the healthy, especially the health and wellness, but also just the early stage CPG community is so incredible. I think much different than the bigger CPG community where there's just a lot more cutthroat. I feel like it's a really nice group of founders that are genuinely up for helping and collaborating and sharing secrets and examples of how things go and advice on mistakes that they've made in the past that they want you to avoid. I think it's really incredible. It sounds like you're having that experience as well.
Everybody has been lovely, especially here in Dallas. Like we have such a great group, and we do monthly coffee meetups and we'll do vendor events. And it's just, I mean, I was at a trade show with the DFW CPG group a couple weeks ago, and they said, we're letting all of you guys exhibit for free. We're not charging you any money to come here and exhibit. And just the support that I get from them is amazing. But yes, overall, everybody has been just so kind and they genuinely want you to succeed, which I wish that every industry was this way,
Yeah.
but it's been a very big blessing for sure.
where do you want to see the brand go? Like, how big do you want to get, and how, you know, I know you've got some things to deal with because you are not shelf stable, right? You can't be on the shelf for 6 months. It's not even what you want,
Right.
right? You want a product. So what do you do to scale when you have to be sort of fresh?
Right. So there are other baking companies that are just direct to consumer and they are crushing it. So that might be, the long-term goal, but when I think about the future of this business, I want it to positively impact the lives of as many people as possible. I want people who are and aren't gluten-free to love these cookies. And surprisingly, over 50% of my customers aren't gluten-free. They just love the cookies, which
Wow.
shocked me. It also
Yeah.
shocks me how many men like them because I feel like men just they're like gluten-free. That sounds disgusting. I want the real deal. So the amount of men that have purchased and sent me messages and like, wow, I can't believe that these taste so good. And so the overall goal for Sweet Addisons is impact as many lives as possible. Uh, I would love to be the next healthy Betty Crocker. I see this as a whole line of desserts, and I would love to be the go-to person for healthier baked goods and treats and desserts. That's my ultimate goal.
Do you see yourself expanding into, you know, you said Betty Crocker, it made me think of mixes and things that people were able to do on their own. Is it stuff like that?
Yeah,
Or,
I
yeah.
I would love to do that. I loved making the boxed brownies, like the Ghirardelli box brownies growing up. And it's easily shelf stable, so I could go into retail that way. But I think it's also a really fun experience for people because they can buy it, take it home, and it still feels like they're making something fresh. So yeah, I would love to do that someday.
And what is success? I mean, so you're saying things like bring joy to as many people as humanly possible. Do you have like tangible success markers and KPIs for yourself, or is it a feeling?
So yes, I do, and have them written on a whiteboard, which I can see because it's on my fridge in my home. I am extremely hard on myself, and I push myself to the limit, and when I get excited about something, it's like nothing else matters, which is not always a healthy thing. So when I started this business, I had specific goals and I realized, okay, this isn't about just hitting the goals. Because if you hit the goals, but you don't have a great product or people are complaining, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. So one of my goals up there is selling 1 million cookies. Now, I don't have a timeline for that, but I'll have a big celebration when we hit 1 million cookies sold. I also really want to go on Shark Tank. That's a huge goal of mine. And I know that's not necessarily a tangible KPI, but I've
Uh,
watched
of
Shark Tank for
course it is.
years. It is
Very
tangible, you're
tangible.
right.
Yeah,
Um,
you reached your goal. You could check that off.
exactly. I already have my outfit picked out, let's say.
Amazing. I love it. I hope that someone from Shark Tank gets to listen to this because I think that's incredible.
I hope so. I watch it every single night. I put it on my TV and I'll like be packaging up orders and just dreaming about one day pitching myself to the Sharks. I closely follow Candace Nelson, who is the owner of Sprinkles. She has the cupcake business and she also has Pizzana, the pizza business now. And it's funny because her background is in investment banking, mine's in
Mhm.
finance. And then she had this, creative outlet and it came to life. And now she's a guest shark. And I'm like, that is the coolest thing. Like, I just think that's so awesome.
That is so awesome. That's very cool. Um, what has to happen for you to be ready for something like that? Like, how far away do you feel like you are? Like, if they called you
Mhm.
and said 2 months, you're on, would you be ready?
No, I wouldn't
Okay, that's interesting.
because my personality would say, yes, let's do it tomorrow. Like, absolutely. But I would need a full-on production team to be able to produce the thousands of cookies that would most likely be ordered on the night that Shark Tank airs. Now,
That's
if they
right.
said, let's record in 2 months and this is going to air next year, okay, that's a completely
Yep.
different. Sign me
Yep.
up for that. But if it was going to air in 2 months, I would say no. And it's very difficult for me to say that because I'm a pretty impatient person. But the whole customer experience is so important to me that I would hate to say, let's get on Shark Tank and then our website crashes. That's not good customer experience. And I know that that happens for brands, and I think it's great because they get so much exposure right at the start. But I would like to strategically go on Shark Tank and have everything set up so that we can have a very successful airing of the show. So personality wise, like sign me up tomorrow. I'm so ready for it. But business wise, it's best to probably wait, 6 to 9 months to at least film the show.
Love it. And do you see yourself as having a brand that's in retail at any point, or do you really think it's going to stay a DTC brand because of the way that you're making the cookies and because of the ingredient panel and stuff like that?
I do see this as for retail someday, and I think
Mhm.
that the overall market will shift a little bit to things that aren't shelf stable. I can really feel like we're on the precipice of people figuring out ingredients, what goes into our food. And in my ideal world, someday grocery stores will be filled with products that are only shelf stable for like maybe a month, because that's how our food is supposed to be. If you research shelf stable food, it was actually created for the military because they had to ship foods overseas. So they would put things in them so that they didn't spoil. This was never meant to be how we lived our everyday lives. And that's a reflection of the way that how sick America is today.
Right.
Because there are ingredients in our foods that our bodies aren't meant to be eating all the time. And I would love to walk into a grocery store in 5 to 10 years and have pretty much everything be refrigerated or freshly baked.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that we are headed in that direction, and I would love to have my products on store shelves so that more people can enjoy them and discover them. But right now, that's kind of an uphill battle.
I think this is so great. You've given us so much good information. You clearly thought about all the things. I always at the end of an interview ask for advice. So maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice, things you've learned, things you'd love to share with other people that are on the similar journey. Um, what would you say?
Well, thank you, first of all. It's been so nice talking to you, and I'm glad that you can see my
Same.
passion come through. And
Oh my God. All over the place.
oh, thank you
Amazing.
so much. So my biggest piece of advice is to not let fear hold you back, because life is so short and we only get one shot at this. And I don't want to be sitting on my deathbed someday looking back thinking, I wish I would have done that, but I cared what people thought, or it was too scary, or I didn't know what I was doing. So I used to tell myself, I'm going to be so fearless. And then I realized through starting this brand that the goal is not to be fearless, because if I have no fear in my life, then I'm living way too comfortably and I'm not pushing and challenging myself. So the goal is no longer to be fearless, it's to be bold and courageous. So that when I feel fear, which is inevitable when you're launching something new and doing something outside your comfort zone, I want to be courageous in the face of fear. And let me just preface this all by saying I live a very healthy, wonderful life. People are facing fear in unimaginable ways that I am not. So I'm not trying to compare my fear to other people, but there is a level of self doubt when you're starting something like this. And there is a little level of fear there. And I am incredibly thankful that I pursued this business and this passion of mine and not let that fear hold me back, because all it takes is one message from one of my customers saying, "You made my day. I loved it." That to me, that's all worth it. If I never made another dollar from this business, knowing that I brought happiness to people, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Amazing. You're so inspiring. I mean, you moved me. Like I was a little choked up
Oh.
there. So that doesn't happen very often. I think that it's incredible. I'm rooting for you. I'm going to stay tuned. And I hope you keep me updated on what's going on because I think you're awesome. And I think you have a huge future ahead of you, which you already know.